Assalamu alaikum fam, hope you're doing well. Well, how is here? Alright, so we're continuing our studying of this Tafseer. It has been highly educational. I really like it. I can totally see why you're supposed to read it. So we are in Surah Al-Baqarah, still picking up on 194. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. A sacred month for a sacred month. Violation of any sanctity calls for fair retribution. So if anyone transgresses against you, then attack him as he attacked you. But fear Allah and know that Allah is with those who fear Him. Okay, so this one's going to be very interesting for us to dig into. The words, a sacred month for a sacred month, may be interpreted as referring to what polytheists did of preventing the Prophet, peace be upon him, and his companions from entering Mecca in the year of Al-Hudaybiyah, and agreeing that they could enter it and make up the missed Umrah. Okay, the missed Umrah. The following year, both incidents and preventing the Muslims from entering Mecca and their making up the missed Umrah occurred in a sacred month, namely Duhul Qada. Okay, so Duhul Qada, making up a missed Umrah. So the ones made up for the other. This offered consolation to the companions by allowing them to complete their rituals of Umrah. It may also mean if you fight them in the sacred month, but they are the ones who started the fight and were the aggressors, then you are not to be blamed for fighting back. Okay, so self-defense, essentially. You have a right to be like, hey, knock it out. According to this understanding, the words violation of any sanctity calls for fair retribution come under the heading of stating a general principle after a specific one. In other words, with regards to everything that is venerated, whether it is a sacred month, okay, everything that is venerated, whether it is a sacred month, a sacred land, being in a state of ihram, or anything more general than that, everything that the Sharia enjoins us to venerate. If anyone transgresses against it, then there should be retribution against him. The one who fights during the sacred month is to be fought. The one who violates the sacred city should be subjected to the had punishment and has no protection in the sacred place. The one who kills peers is to be killed in return. The one who wounds another or severs his limb is to be subject to legal retribution. The one who takes the wealth of another unlawfully should have an equivalent account taken from him. That wealth point is actually really interesting because there's a lot of financial crimes that happen in the world, and think about if you were actually able to enforce something like, hey, you took this money, now you're going to have to pay for that. That would be pretty cool. Like, that would actually bring down, I think, a lot of financial crime. Wow. But can the one who is in the right take as much as he is entitled to or not? There's a difference of scholarly opinion concerning this matter. The correct view is that if the reason for him having this right is obvious, such as a guest who is not offered hospitality, or when a man refuses to spend on a wife or relative on whom one is obliged to spend. Okay, notice this. When a man refuses to spend on his wife or relative. That reminds me of, like, I had a stepdad, and he was very stingy with groceries, and sometimes I'd ask him for money to get a sandwich, he wouldn't do it. He was a chef, but he would, like, hoard all his wealth, and he would be very penny pinching, we'd call it. And I hated him for that as a stepdad. And my mom was on welfare, and he would, like, be very stingy with food. That was a characteristic that I've always hated, is when people were stingy, they had the money, and then they hold back on food. I think that's why I'm so giving with food. And it's like, they were married in an Indian ceremony, not in an American way, so they were, like, married in this different way. And it's like, he didn't do his rights of, like, taking care of his woman or his new family, right? Because I was there. But here in this Islamic system, you see how it's superior is that you know, having this obligation to spend on your family and your wife. Because, see, I'm not saying that you have to be, you know, balling out of control, buying stupid things, but there are character traits of people who, like, if you ask for money for a coffee, and then they're like, what do you need that for? Or, I don't have it. Like, little tiny things that you're like, come on, man, you gotta be stingy even about that. Because I think that leads to more women wanting to have jobs so that they don't have to, like, ask, like, just for, like, a couple coins, as they say. I know me personally, that's why I think I'm so, like, independent in my mind, is because I've been working all my life, so I always had my own money. So having to depend on someone and ask them for things, and then if they say no, it's not a good feeling inside, because you're like, ugh, this guy's being stingy or something, you know? So it's cool that there's this, you know, system within Islam where it's like you're encouraged to give, you know, this type of hospitality not only to others but to your family as well. They have these rights. It's very interesting. In such cases, it is permissible to take one's rights from that person's wealth. Okay, so to take one's right from that person's wealth. But if the reason is not obvious, such as one who denied a debt that he owed to the other, or betrayed a trust that he was given, or he stole something, and so on, in such cases it is not permissible for him to take a compensation from the wrongdoer's wealth, so as to reconcile between the evidence. Okay, reconcile between the evidence. You get that? That's interesting. Okay. Hence Allah, the Exalted in Might, says, emphasizing the above. So if anyone transgresses against you, then attack him as he attacked you. So this explains how to settle scores, namely for the like. Now I know that there's going to be some hippy-dippy who says, an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. But the whole topic of justice is a very serious discussion. And I know right now in America it is extremely popular to be very soft on crime. To the point where even here in California, if you steal like under, you know, $300 from CVS, you can't get the cops called on you. And so many business owners are complaining that, you know, they're getting their stuff stolen all the time. People come in, because there's like 24-hour supermarkets. People come in, they steal beer, and then they leave, and you don't have a right to call the police. So it's just open theft. And people are becoming more of like stealing things and then reselling them on Amazon and other websites, making money. So the businesses have a little bit of insurance, but it's encouraging theft. And so our justice system here in America is getting very strange. It's becoming inverted, very soft on crime. Very hippy-dippy utopian of like, everyone can be reformed and you shouldn't have these certain crimes, and it's a little bit strange. We either have two hardliners or two people who are too soft. We've lost the middle path. But in this system, for me, it's like for like makes sense, because if you think about it, if that was a possibility, it would really, you know, let people know, like, hey, this is going to be done to you. And I know there's a lot of sociologists who disagree with, like, oh, well, look at the death penalty. People still commit crimes, even though the death penalty is above their head. However, I'd go back at that and say, well, the problem is that we're not efficient, fast, and cheap with our death penalty. And you have very bleeding heart liberals who say, okay, if there's 2% that are innocent, that means we shouldn't allow the other, you know, percentages of like 98% to be executed, even if they've committed horrible crimes against children. And this is why it's like, that's just insane. Like, you're gonna give those people guaranteed food and shelter for life, but regular citizens have to go out and work and just be victim of crimes and deal with it? No, I think with certain crimes, there needs to be the same done to them. But again, it's hard because we have really soft people now. It's very strange. For me, I like this type of thought, you know? Like, reminding people that what you do comes back could really help, but we're getting so soft on crime, you know? Because in most cases, people would not stop at the limits when granted a concession allowing retaliation. Yes, some people might go a bit far with how they want their retaliation to be carried out. So you gotta watch it, right? Since people want that satisfaction, Allah Azza wa Jal enjoined them to always fear Him, which means heeding His limits and not overstepping them. Yes, it could get into the point of like, you know, too much enjoyment of the process itself, right? The vengeance, just like it becomes very powerful. That could definitely be a problem. Allah tells us that He is with those who fear Him and He will help them, support them, and guide them. So having the fear and love of Allah and hope, right? Keep on going. If Allah is with a person, he will attain eternal happiness. But if a person does not adhere to piety and fear Allah, He will forsake him and not protect him. He will leave him to his own devices, and thus his doom will be closer to him than just his jugular vein. The jugular vein point, remember, like Allah's so close to you, like He's close to your jugular vein, and then He ties that into the Tafseer. That's very good. Okay, so if we have piety, we'll be more under the protection of Allah, and you can transgress. You cannot transgress. You have to stay within the bounds of what Allah has permitted, and the laws of retribution. And you have a right to fight back your aggressors if you're in a sort of sanctified state, if they're coming upon you. So big point of self-defense there, right? You cannot just go around pushing them, but you have to be like, hey, stop it. And this stems from when the Quraysh paganistic people, polytheists, tried to prevent them from doing Umrah. Excellent. So that was 194.